Hey everybody, welcome back to C3 Students, small groups, week 2 of our series, True Story. And we're gonna kick off this week's video with a little challenge. Now, in life, you will sometimes face challenges, difficulties, and one of the things you have to do is learn how to overcome those difficulties or challenges. Well, tonight we have a challenge for you. It's gonna be pretty easy, but it might come with a little bit of difficulty for you. And that is, tonight we are going to ask you guys to build a tower. Now, your leaders should already have a bag of mini marshmallows and a box of dry spaghetti. Here's the challenge. You are going to take the dry spaghetti and the mini marshmallows, and your task is to build a tower as tall as possible. And I mean as tall as possible. We want this thing to be able to stand as high as you can make it, with some things here, okay? Some guidelines. One, it does have to be freestanding. You can't be holding it. You can't, prop it up against something. You need to build a tower that is completely dependent upon its own self, and you need to build it as high as possible. The second guideline or kind of rule to this is everybody must participate, and you can figure out what's the best way for you to participate, whether you're taking turns or whether you're working together. It all depends on the size of your group and where you are and how you can build this. So you have to figure that out. Third rule or guideline to all of this is you only have 5 minutes. And we're gonna put the honor system out there and trust that you guys are gonna limit your time to 5 minutes, okay? So here's what's gonna happen. In just a second, I'm gonna ask you to pause the video. I'm gonna then say, take 2 minutes, come up with a plan, and then start your timer. And when you start your timer, you will have 5 minutes to build your tower as tall as you can get it. At the end of the 5 minutes, wherever you are, you have to stop, okay? Now, the way that we're going to follow up on this is, leaders, I'm gonna ask that you take plenty of pictures of the building process, and I want to encourage you maybe even to take a video or two of it. Now, you do have to maintain that 5-minute guideline for building time. And here's the deal. We're gonna have all small groups compete against themselves or with each other so we can see who can build the tallest tower in 5 minutes. And so at the very end, we wanna see some type of measurement, either counting rows or looking at how high, so make sure you're taking pictures. All right. Pretty simple, but it might be a challenge for some of you, so let's get into this. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video, 2 minutes to plan, 5 minutes to build, and then come back and I'll be right here for you. All right, ready? Go. Okay, everybody, welcome back. How did you do? Now, what's gonna happen is leaders, you'll need to send me your pictures later on tonight when small group is over, and we will line up the pictures and we'll try to determine just who had the tallest tower, and then we'll declare our winners next week. So make sure you save those pictures, send them to me, and try to give me a gauge of just how tall your tower was built. Now, let's talk about this activity and your towers. What was it like for you to build something from pretty much nothing? I mean, we didn't have the best building materials. It probably been a lot more fun. You probably could have accomplished more if we used something like Legos, but I mean, we used mini marshmallows and dry spaghetti and asked you to build a tower as possible. Now, I'm kind of thinking that maybe some of you weren't thrilled with the activity. You don't maybe like working with marshmallows. They get all sticky and gross, and maybe it was a little frustrating because you had to work with a group of people where maybe you had your thoughts and plans and it would have been just easier for you to go and do it, but you had to work with a team, and so you had to figure out how to communicate with that team, or maybe you just didn't know how to communicate with the team. But maybe there's some of you out there that actually really loved this activity. You like coming up to a challenge and you like to try to figure out how to overcome it or accomplish it. And so maybe for you, building this tower was fun and engaging, maybe even a little energizing. Well, I kind of feel like in our lives, we will face challenges, and sometimes those challenges are going to bring us to a point where we might see that challenge and we might get super excited and think this is going to be awesome, it's going to be great, let's go ahead and do this. Or sometimes these challenges are going to come to us and we're going to be like, this is huge, even maybe impossible. How are we ever going to accomplish this? Well, either way, I think there's some truths out there that can help us when we face difficulties or challenges. And like we've been doing in our series, we want to look into God's Word, the Bible, to try to understand who God is, because when we understand who God is, then we see the truth, and those truths then can help us in those situations. Now, how many of you have seen the movie Incredibles? Not Incredibles 2, Incredibles 1, the original, the better of the two, although the 2 was pretty good, but honestly, number 1 was the better movie. But here, let's talk about the Incredibles. So what we have are these two superheroes, Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl. And in the early parts of the movie, they get together, they get married, they start a family, and what we come to know is that they have a family of superhero kids. There is dad, who has superhuman strength. There is mom, who has the ability to be incredibly elastic, stretchy. Then we meet the oldest daughter, and we find out that she can create force fields and be invisible. We meet the son, and we find out that he has superhuman speed. And then there's the baby. And initially, it looks like the baby has no superpowers. Now, through the course of the movie, we get to meet these characters, we get to see their superhero powers, and we see them working together as a family to overcome a number of challenges and what seem to be impossible tasks. It's a task after task. They come together and they're able to work together to defeat whatever that challenge is. In this case, it's Syndrome. But then we come towards the end of the movie and something happens that becomes a little unexpected. And that's when Syndrome takes Jack, the little baby. And it's in that moment that we see Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl come together and work together. Actually, the whole family comes together, works together to try to save Jack. But it's not just the family who's doing this, the mom, dad, and Violet and Dash. It's Jack does something surprising. We find out that he does have superpowers, and the use of his superpowers helps him become free. But what we see in all of this is that faced with difficulty, they were able to overcome their challenges. Now, that's, again, movie life. What about real life? Well, we go to the Bible for our real life story, and we don't often see a lot of superheroes in the Bible, but we do see a lot of supernatural. And that is as we watch God reveal himself in the way he does miraculous things. And we see God do miraculous things in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. So let's get into tonight's lesson and let's see how God reveals himself. Tonight we are going to the book of 1 Kings in the Old Testament. So if you have your Bibles or your Bible apps, go ahead and open up, because I'm actually going to have you guys read these verses here in just a little bit tonight. But tonight we are going to meet a guy named Elijah. Now, Elijah was someone who lived obviously in the Old Testament. He lived at a time when there was a king named Ahab. We're going to find out a little bit that this Ahab is a pretty heinous dude. But God does something pretty miraculous through Elijah. And Elijah is taken on this journey where he has to face some difficulties, and how he responds to these difficulties is going to teach us a lot about how God responds and uses us in the midst of those challenges. So here's what I'm going to have you guys do tonight, because the readings are a little bit longer. I'm not going to read them, but instead I'm going to have you push pause. And when you push pause, you're going to read the story, the verses I tell you to read, and then come back, and I'm going to kind of just sum some things up for you so you can see how God is revealing himself. So the first portion of verses I want you to read is 1 Kings chapter 18, and you're going to read verses 18 through 39. And as you're reading them, I want you to try to answer this question. What do these verses reveal to us about God? Okay? What do these verses reveal to us about God? You ready? Go ahead. Okay, so in this first reading, we meet Elijah. Now, Elijah is a prophet. That is someone who brings messages from God to God's people. The question I had for you to consider was, what do these verses reveal to us about who God is? Or what do they reveal to us about God? Well, we see a couple things right off the bat, and let me just share them with you. You can talk about them later. The first thing that we see is in verse 37, that God hears our prayers. Elijah prayed, and God responded. What happened when the prophets of Baal prayed? Not much, right? But when we pray, when Elijah prays, God hears. What else did we learn? Well, we learned that God can be trusted. Also in 37, you see, Elijah had trusted that not only would his prayers be heard, but that God would show up, that God would intervene, that he would do something, in this case, bring fire down from heaven. The next thing that we kind of see revealed about who God is that God is powerful. Verse 38. God does what Elijah is asking God to do, and he reveals his power by consuming the altar. What else do we know about God? Well, in verse 39, we see that there is only one God. There is our God. That the prophets of Baal prayed and nothing happened. And that was because there was no God to make anything happen. Baal was not a true God. Only Elijah's God was the true God. And that God, our God, is the God who showed up. You see, now let's think about that, because if you serve God, specifically a God like our God, like a God we just read about, well then it makes sense that we would be ready and willing to take on challenges, right? If God shows up the way he does, it should make sense for us that in the midst of our challenges, we can face them, because God in some way is going to show up. God called Elijah to do something difficult, but Elijah, he embraced the challenge and he obeyed boldly. At least he did this time. All right, I want you to read some more for me. So this time we're going to 1 Kings chapter 19, and I want you to read verses 2 to 12. We're going to see a different side of Elijah here in just a second. Pause the video and go ahead and read that right now. Okay, we're back. So, can you see the difference in the stories? The first story, Elijah acted boldly and with courage and faced the difficulty and the challenge that was put for him. But then what happened afterwards? Well, Jezebel and Ahab are angry. They're fuming. They put a hit out for Elijah. They want him dead. And what does Elijah do? He runs away. In fear, he runs away and he hides. To the point that he finds himself by this creek and he's asking God to let him die. He is so afraid of what had just happened and what now he was facing that he just wanted to die. Now, let's look not so much at what Elijah is doing, but what we see God doing. How does God respond to the needs that Elijah now has? Well, go back to the scriptures. We see that he is gentle in verse 5. We see that he is understanding in verse 5. We see that he gives what is needed. Elijah needed time. He needed rest. He needed care. And God provided that. Not only does he provide what we need, but in verse 8, we see that he goes ahead and he protects Elijah. And then that he is with Elijah in verse 9. And then ultimately, when Elijah needed it most, when he needed to hear from God, we see in verses 10 through 12 that God speaks to Elijah. Now, if I had to sum all of this up, and if I had to say one thing about who God is in all of these things, I think it would simply be God is good. Now, the question left for us to answer is, how are we going to respond when difficult and challenging situations arise in our life? We've seen two great examples from the same person, how Elijah responded to the difficult task that God put before him with great courage and boldness. And then we see at another time Elijah in complete breakdown, in fear and in hiding. And we see God responding in two amazing ways. With the first, he shows up, he's trustworthy, he's powerful. Yet the second time, he is gentle and understanding and caring. When we face our difficulties and challenges, God's going to show up. And we're going to see that same God intervene in our lives. That same God who is trustworthy and powerful is also going to be the God who is caring and gentle and understanding. See, what I want to challenge us with as we deal with the things in life, let's not back down from the challenges and the difficulties that we face. No, God has created us and wired us and made us to do difficult things. That we can rely on him, depend on him, trust in him, and he is going to be with us in those difficult situations. It's why our big idea for this week sums it up perfectly. Our big idea is this: because of who God is, we can do difficult things. Tonight in your small groups, I want to challenge you again to open up and maybe share some of the difficult things that you either have faced in your life or that you are currently facing now. And let's look for ways that we could see God either working in those past difficulties or in ways that maybe we hope to see God work in those situations now. And be honest, be open, be real, and share in this time of small groups. And we will see you next week with our final installment of our series, True Story. So until then, have a great time with your small groups, and we'll see you next Tuesday.